How's it going, everybody? Beer over here from Team Berserk. I'm here with my teammate MS Element, part of TCG Metals, and I've come to show you a really cool Android 21 list that I came up with last week. I like to call this the A21 Cooler build, and this is a very explosive, high roll Android 21 build where you have the potential to kill your opponent turn 2, if you're going second. But yeah, I did want to go through the build, and I want to show you some cool stuff, and I'll show you the lines of play and how you could potentially go for the turn 2 kill with this as well, and then how to do the game plan overall either way. But yeah, without further ado, as you all know how this leader works, you start the game with the field card. The field card basically makes it so the first card that either player plays on that turn has Summoning Sickness. Any black cards that play go to the grave. And the start of my opponent's turn, they get two 10k clone tokens. So ideally, with the build that I'm talking about, where you want to do the turn 2 cheese, you want to be going second instead of going first. But either way, the reason it's all possible is because this leader's activate main is absolutely cracked out, where you do the activate main, you remove one of the clone tokens from your opponent's board, you get to draw one, you can bounce up to one drop on your opponent's board, and at the start of your opponent's main phase, you can untap a blue-green multicolor energy. So basically you always would have one open mana on your opponent's turn. So the idea of, for example, an opening hand, you would have either one copy of either of these, and then you would go for a Biriarr Unison. So what you would do here is in the opening hand already, if you have this and this, you're pretty much in a good spot. You would go at least one copy of Restoration. You would go at least one copy of this, and you would need only at least one copy of this in your hand. And then anything else in your hand doesn't matter. So the way this works is you go ahead, you charge this on your first turn. You pay one, you play the Biriarr, and this is assuming you're going second. You swing with your leader, you plus one on Biriarr, swing for 15, and then you do the activate main, you draw your card, and then you can pass. And then when you pass your opponent at the start of your opponent's main phase, you have one open mana because it untaps it. Your Biriarr's at 2 markers, they get 2 clone tokens. At any point during your opponent's turn, whether the first attack, second attack, whatever the heck you want, you negate the attack using Restoration. Restoration is the reason why we're using Android 21 over any of the other blue-green style leaders, because basically as long as you have a multicolor energy, when you negate the attack, it lets you play a 2 cost or less Android 16 from your hand. So ideally, it lets you play Energy Amplification on your opponent's turn 2, sorry. So at that point, on your opponent's turn 2, you negate the attack, you go into Energy Amplification, then the top card of your deck is here as well, right? So let's just say this is like one of your energy, right? And then you let your opponent do whatever else they're going to do. There's no way they're going to kill you turn 2 anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then you go to your turn, right? On your turn, you go ahead and charge another green card. Let's say you had another Biriarr or something like that in hand, right? And then you go into your opponent like this. You have 3 open mana. And then from there, you swing with your leader, you do the activate main, draw another card, you do another plus on Biriarr, swing again. And then let's say you have a super combo in hand, you could swing with the energy amp as well, use your super combo just to push for more aggression. And then you tap 3 and empower and play the Golden Frieza on your turn 2, and it comes in with 6 markers. You wipe your opponent's board, you do the -4, and you go 30 triple 30 triple. And if they don't have enough cards in hand, you basically win then and there. And that's all it takes to do a turn 2 cheese with this list. But that's like the ideal turn 1 going second, and obviously you can still do this going first to an extent. But if you're doing this going first, what happens instead is you don't play Biriarr turn 1, you just pass your opponent, and then you use the negate attack to ramp on your opponent's turn 1, so that on your turn 2 you still have the 3 energy. And then this would require you to have a Senzu Bean, because then you could play the Biriarr, swing with the Biriarr, and then bean the Biriarr or bean on your leader swing, or either or, then swing with your leader, and then you would pay the 3 to play the Frieza, and swing in again with the Frieza, of course. And yeah, so you can still do it going first, but if you do it going first, you would need a Senzu Bean in your hand where like this turn 2 cheese needs like 5 specific cards in hand, the other one would need 6, right? But either way, that's the cheese part of the deck. However, this deck actually has a lot of hand control aspects to it as well that are quite effective, I found. I've played about 21 games of this so far. I've won most of them. I will say this: all the matchups, they are kind of bumpy. Like you gotta fight for your wins, but it is really fun. Like this is a really fun deck where like no one expects like a Golden Frieza to be played turn 2. No one expects it every other turn after that. It just does a lot of good things. But like this leader just adds so much value to everything you do as well, because if your opponent makes the error of making it where they pass to you and you have 4 open life, you can do the activate main on front side, then awaken, draw 2, and do the activate main again. And then what that means is when you pass to your opponent, you have 2 open mana. So you could literally tap 3 for the Frieza, swing with the Frieza on your turn, and then when you pass your opponent, you have 2 open mana. You'd use D-Magic or like a Sense of Being on your leader on their first swing, and then on their second swing, you can play another Golden Frieza and wipe their board again, and then go into that Frieza again on the next turn. So there's a lot of like annoying recursion in that aspect. But moving on from there, obviously the Unison package we are running in this is 4 Demigras, 3 of the Golden Frieza, and 3 of the Frieza Unison, the Galactic Dynasty. So with this package here, you obviously have a Unison that's basically invincible and helps you self-awaken if they try to target it. You have your your endgame boss monster that just ruins your opponent, and you have this one that does 20k pressure, and also is a form of discard as well, because it will come in with like it'll come with the 4 more markers. Your opponent's going to discard 1, so you'll always have that nice pressure there. I'm running 2 copies of Cooler Sibling Cruelty. So this one, he gets the cost reduction for each green unison in your grave, and you can, when it's played, you basically can bottom deck one of those green unisons to make your opponent discard 1. So yet again, it's another discard, and he could potentially be a 1 mana 20k double striker, which is obviously amazing. With regards to the fact that you have the summoning sickness, I have done games where I just play it and don't swing with it because the summoning sickness, and I don't mind because I'm forcing my opponent to lose cards in hand. So it's a nice card. I go 2 copies of the 1-drop Cooler, the mightiest sibling in space. This is just for like the ability to search for more unisons. I've maybe used it about half my games. It's nice when it goes off and you grab a Frieza or the other one. It's nice to be able to get what you need, and it is an alternate way to self-awaken where if one of your unisons does go to the grave, you can take the life if you want, and he still becomes a 15k when the unison goes to grave, and you can take the life. So it's a nice way to potentially help you self-awaken, and I think it's good enough at 2 copies. I don't really feel the need to go anything more, but it is a pretty solid card. And then we go 2 copies of Charismatic Villain. It's Charismatic Villain. I mean, nothing more to really say. It snipes 7 or less. It's a good card, but I will be honest. After 21 games of playing this, I've never used Charismatic once. So I will be honest, I might actually seriously consider cutting Charismatic because it's actually not been useful in any of the games that I've played. But it is still Charismatic. Like, it's such a good card that it's a tough argument either way. But if I do make any changes to the list, this is probably the first to go. My super combo package, and this is where you can do whatever you want here in terms of super combos, but I do a 2-2 split, and this has been very useful for me in all honesty. Is like the hand control one is always very good. Bionic Blitz is cracked out, like no one's ever going to argue about that. And the team up attack one is also really good. Being able to untap that mana on defense can make the difference because it does let you go into your arrival package, and you have a small but pretty strong arrival package. So the package, we go 2 copies of Supreme Techniques on Goku. So this one, Arrival Blue-Green for 1 blue mana. He's a 20k blocker, and when he's played, you remove 2 of the clone tokens from your opponent's board and make your opponent discard 1. So yet again, more hand control. And because you always will have at least 1 open blue-green mana on your opponent's turn, as long as you have a blue-green a combo, you can always make your opponent go at least -1 in hand, and you get a 20k blocker. So it's just annoying enough where like it's a 4 cost as well. So most counterplays that hit 3 or less don't hit it, obviously. It's a 20k, so Resolve Renew doesn't hit it. So a lot of the meta-relevant counterplays don't hit it. Where like maybe something like Videl might hit it or something like that, but like other counterplays in the meta don't really hit it, which is very nice. And it is a nice way to remove your clone tokens, because sometimes you'll face an opponent who has like a giant hand and they'll start swinging with like those 10k tokens and just combo a card, combo a card, combo a card, combo a card. So just being able to remove them is quite useful as well. And then we go 3 copies of 16 Steadfast Comeback. You could run 4 if you want. I only have 3 copies, so that's why I'm only at 3. You could go 4. This one's absolutely insane. When you combo with it, or when you play it from your hand, you make your opponent discard 1, or you can put a 1-drop in your grave, but make your opponent discard 1. Double, dual attack, blocker, revenge, 20k. This card's absolutely amazing. And he's one of the reasons why I still consider running this super combo, because you could always at any point, let one of your opponents swings through, super combo with this to untap that second blue-green mana, and then just arrival that. And then now your opponent's having to worry about a revenge blocker that's a 20k, and they went -1 in hand. So it does add you a lot more pressure. It gives you more extra hand control, and yeah, it's just a really solid card overall. And then the last arrival that I just use this as a one of, is the Stalwart Defender, Android 16. This is mainly in the rare circumstance where you can't find your energy amplification. You can use this to search for it, and in other matchups sometimes it's nice just because it can pop a 4 or less, but I normally just view this as a 5th copy of energy amp that's also a body that can swing. That's the main use for it. I want to be able to see energy amp. If I don't see it, I can use this. That's really my main purpose, but sniping a card is also good. So that's the arrival package. And then we have some other cards that go into the deck. So we go 2 copies of the 17-18, the deflect dual attack one, the limitless energy, the one that's using gamma. You can play it from your hand or from your energy with its activate main. So this leader doesn't replace its energy automatically like gamma. So what I typically do is I keep this in my hand and just pay the 2 mana and play it from my hand to bottom deck one of their threats. And it is a deflect dual attack. So that is pretty nice, but obviously you have to be wary of your summoning sickness. I will say this, this build, it does get a little awkward with the summoning sickness aspect of things, so you do have to do some weird sequencing at times, so there may be something there to change or correct. But this card is still invaluable, and because it is technically a 5 or less 20k, it's 25k or less, and it's a 5 or less android, you can play it off the Super 17 for the tap 7, so this is a card you can charge and then play off the Super 17. And then the other main target for the Super 17 is 2 copies of Android 21 Bad Omen. Go a 3rd copy if you want. I'm fine with 2. This is the one where when you can pay for and play it from your energy, and when this card is played, you sack an energy to place one of your opponent's battle cards and one of your opponent's life in the grave. So it's the Burn 21 and yeah, you can play it off the Super 17. So ideally you have 2 copies of this or 3 copies or whatever amount you decide to run in your energy. You play the Super 17. Super 17 lets you play 3 androids of 5 or less with 25,000 power less, such as Android 21. So you could play 2 of these and the dual attacker, and now you have 2 25ks and a 20k dual attacker, and you burn your opponent for 2 life. So it's a nice end game option if you want to go for it. There you go, right? The other main final boss card is 1 copy of the 17-18 Siblings Revived. This deck ramps a lot, so paying 8 is not actually that hard. But yet again, you do fall into the issue of the summoning sickness. So something you can do, if you're not able to, because right now, I'll be honest, the current list does not have an Overwhelm, but it is something I'm going to consider because you can play the Overwhelm, then it goes to grave. You can use Sensu Bean to play you can play a 1-drop, then Sensu Bean to go into that. You could go to 9 mana instead, and you could play this guy out from your energy so that it hits the board, and then you go into the 8-drop. But either way, this card is essentially a ignoring barrier board wipe that on play wipes the board and lets you untap 1 blue energy, and when it attacks, deflect double strike dual attack, and lets you look at your opponent's hand and put 2 cards in your opponent's hand into their energy in rest mode. And it's not a once per turn auto, so you're basically making your opponent go -4 in hand. And with everything else in your deck that also makes your opponent go minus in hand, it really does add up, because the Frieza is basically 3 discards, the Cooler's 2 discards, so that's already 5. You have the 2 super combos, you're at 7. The Gokus are another 2, so you're at 9. And then the Seer as well, you're at 12. And then you have this as well, which can potentially, if this doesn't get removed, this can just keep going. But like the turn it's played, basically it's another 4 there by itself. So your opponent ends up having a really, really small hand, and they have to also out-combo stuff like the Golden Frieza. So this ends up like basically winning you the game almost all the time. When you do pull this off, it does win you the game. And then the last things is your standard negate package. You already have 4 copies of Restoration, which is a hard negate. We go 4 copies of D Magic, 1 Baby Hatch, and because you run Energy Amp, Baby Hatch, you can get the ability to play it for free if you have 3 or more energy. Basically, like it's counterattack because you just have 3 or more energy, so you can actually have Hatch active turn 2 onwards as long as you get the Energy Amp off. So you have one of the best floodgates in the game, period, and then 3 Sensu Beans. And that's like the main list. And then there's a few cards that I had considered as like sideboard options or tech options, stuff like that. I was considering for like slower matchups, you would go 1 to 2 copies of Steadfast Ally, because he can, against those slower decks, you're going to whittle down their hand, but then this gives you extra pressure and can let you cheat out the burn 21 from your deck. So you can start like burning them to death as well. So this is a very nice card to run. I was thinking potentially 2 to 3 copies of the Dodoria. After about like 20 plus games, I have found that my opponents, they tend to not let my leader awaken when I want to awaken. So having another way to self-awaken is very useful. Obviously, Demigra, the Cooler, and D-Magic can help you self-awaken, but this is just another source. And it is a double striker, and it is a 1-drop that you can just play and move on with your life. You could alternatively run that 1-drop double strike Vegeta instead, but even though you're playing a blue leader, most of your deck is actually like a green deck. You're not really charging mono blue often. It's usually blue-green, or just green, and even then you only really need 1 blue mana for your D-Magics and your Sensu Beans. Everything else you just need green mana for the most part, so it ends up working out, other than like the Super 17 and the 21's activates main where you need like a second blue, but because you're blue-green it doesn't matter. And then you can go, I'm thinking 2 to 4 copies of this. So the Let the Battle Begin Android 18 is probably one of the best counterplays in the current meta, because it hits a battle card 4 or less is placed the owner's drop here instead of being played. It hits the board, and it's a 15k blocker. Its cost reduction is actually insane, because it needs just your leader to be an android or a heroine, and to have a specified cost 2 or more unison, I believe, and on your opponent's turn. So what that basically means is the Golden Friezas are actually valid targets for the cost reduction on this 18. So you have ways to like answer certain floodgates if you need, or certain like threats that are 4 or less with this card. So this is very, very valuable, and should not be slept on, right? And then the last thing I was thinking of, and this is mainly only for the Bulma matchup, which I don't even know how good or bad that matchup is. I've not faced that one in particular. I have multiple board wipes, so it shouldn't be too bad, but something I realized is like Bulma likes to draw a lot, likes to stall you out, but what you can do is you can always do the old-fashioned degenerate Rebirth Frieza combo. Now, obviously with the errata, the 100% overdrive Frieza won't be able to hit the tokens, and that's fine, but because of how Bulma as a deck works, where it just floods the board full of like all these blockers, you can just use Rebirth to go into this and just swing. You clear their board and you mill them to death, because they usually have like, I don't know, 5 to 10 cards on board. You're just like, yeah, okay, whatever, buddy. So those are the cards I was considering like side-wise. But overall, this is the current list. So 4 Demigras, 3 Golden Friezas, 3 of the Galactic Dynasty, 4 Super 17s, 2 of the Key Channeler 17, the Checkland, 2 of the Sibling Cruelty, 2 of the Mightiest in Space, 2 Charismatic, the 2/2 split up Bionic Blitz and Team Up Attack, 2 Supreme Techniques, 3 Steadfast, 1 Stalwart, 2 Bad Omen 21s, 2 copies of the Limitless Energy 1718, 1 copy of the Siblings Revived 1718, 4 Restoration, and of course, naturally, the 4 copies of Energy Amp, 4 D-Magic, 1 Baby Hatch, and 3 Setsu Beans. That is the main list there, and then everything else is honestly, you know, it's basically the deck clocks to 54 cards exactly, but because you start the game with the field card on board, you technically are running a 53 card list. And yeah, this is basically like what I had come up with initially. I haven't really made any changes yet, but like I had said earlier, Charismatic is probably coming out for like 2 Dodoris, so I can self-awaken more effectively, and it gives me another like cheap 1-drop I can play to deal with like the summoning sickness I would impose upon myself. And I would likely look to find a way to squeeze in an Overwhelm or 2, just so I can like use my other use my other beat sticks without having to worry about the summoning sickness on my side. But yeah, there you have it.